Our story begins in a place called Omonde. Now, Omonde wasn't a big city like Lagos or Abuja. It was just a quiet, dusty town where everybody knew everybody. The biggest events were usually market days, and the most exciting news was who had a new bicycle. Life was slow, simple, and honest. But in Omonde, just like everywhere else, there was a quiet order. The men worked their farms or their shops. The women kept the homes, and the children played under the mango trees. This order, this simple peace, was about to be broken like a cheap ceramic plate. One sunny afternoon, a taxi, one of those fancy ones from the city, rolled into town and stopped right in front of the only guest house Omonde had. And then she stepped out. The woman, Efe. That was the name she gave. The moment she stepped onto the red earth, the town seemed to hold its breath. She was breathtaking. Not just pretty. We are talking about a kind of beauty that made you forget your own name. Her skin was the color of rich cocoa butter, and her hair was a thick black waterfall. But it was her eyes. Her eyes shook like polished diamonds. They held a cold, sharp light that drew you in, even if you were afraid of the dark. The first person to see her was Papa Shede, the guest house owner. Papa Shede was a solid man, married for 30 years to Mama Shede, a woman he loved and respected. But when Efe smiled at him, Papa Shede forgot about his wife, his children, and even the change he was supposed to give the taxi driver. He just said, holding his breath like a schoolboy, "Words traveled faster than a Hamilton fire. Have you seen the new woman? The one with the light in her eyes?" Every man who saw Efe felt the same way. A crazy, burning need to be near her. It was like she was a powerful magnet, and they were all just pieces of metal being pulled against their will. Soon, the quiet town of Omonde began to change. The men started acting strange. The happy, hard-working husbands of Omonde turned into sneaky, nervous shadows. Take Mazio Kafo, a successful trader who sold spare parts. He was known for his love for his family. Now, he started telling big, clumsy lies. "I have to go to the next village for emergency." He did tell his wife, Ngozi, his eyes darting everywhere. But the emergency business was always a visit to Efe's room at the guest house. Brother James, the mechanic, who usually closed his shop at 6 p.m. sharp, started staying out late. He used his business money to buy Efe expensive gifts, jewelry, designer wrappers, things no one in Omonde had ever seen. The wives noticed. Of course they noticed. Wives have eyes in the back of their heads and ears that hear whispers from miles away. They saw the new excitement in their husbands' eyes, the way they checked their appearance, the expensive scent of the sheep cologne, and the guilt that clung to them like dust. Then, the real terror began. It started with Papa Shede, the guest house owner. One morning, his wife, Mama Shede, found him sitting on the edge of the bed, shivering. He looked weak like a bag of bones. "Papa Shede, what is wrong?" she cried. He couldn't speak much, but he pointed a trembling finger to the small safe in the wall. Every naira that he had saved for their daughter's university fees was gone, vanished. The safe wasn't broken. It was just empty. Within 2 weeks, Mazi Okafor, the spare parts trader, became sick. A strange, heavy exhaustion fell over him. He couldn't lift his hand to eat. He was coughing all the time, and no doctor could say what the illness was. And his shop, his whole stock was stolen overnight. His account was cleaned out. He went from the town's wealthiest man to a beggar, all just in a matter of weeks. Brother James, the mechanic, was next. The gift he bought Efe had used all his working capital. He couldn't buy new spare parts again. Then, the most unbelievable things happened. His garage, his main tools, and his prize taxi all went up in flames one night. Brother James, too, started coughing and wasting away. He turning a sickly yellow. The town finally saw the terrible pattern. Every man who had been sneaking around, every man who had spent one night with the beautiful Efe, was now paying a crushing price. First, they slept with her. Second, their money, their business, their entire wealth disappeared. Third, a terrible unexplained sickness drained their lives away. The whispers changed. They were no longer whispers of desire, but whispers of fear. She's a witch. She's a mommy water that came from the river to steal our man's spirits. She carries a terrible curse. Efe, the diamond-eyed woman, was no longer a beautiful mystery. She was now a danger to them, a clear and present threat to every home in Umundi. Umundi was now a town in chaos. Families were ruined. The wives whose homes were broken and whose husbands were dying cried out for justice. But what could they do? She had done nothing in the eyes of the law. She hadn't stolen the money with a gun. She hadn't forced the men. They had all gone to her freely. And the worst part, even with the clear, terrifying evidence, a few men, the foolish ones, still couldn't stay away. They would look at their ruined neighbors and say, but my own love is different. They wouldn't do that to me. It was a curse that made them blind to reason. The women of the town, especially the wives whose marriages were intact, were filled with a jealous terror. They saw Efe as the enemy. They stood outside the guest house, shouting insults, threatening to burn the place down. But among the frightened and angry wives, there was one who refused to just cry. Her name was Ngozi. She was Mazi Okafor's wife. Her husband, once a strong, laughing man, was now lying in bed, a shadow of himself. His business gone. Ngozi wasn't loud. She wasn't an angry street fighter. She was a thinker. She saw the pattern, but she didn't believe in simple causes. She felt there was a real hand, a real mind behind all this destruction. A curse doesn't empty a safe without breaking the lock, she told herself. A demon doesn't care about the market price of spare parts. This is not just juju. This is a plan. Ngozi decided she wouldn't stand by and watch her town and her husband die. She would find out who Efe really was and, more importantly, what she truly came for. Ngozi began her secret investigation. First, she visited Mama Chidi, the guest house owner's wife. She paid for her room 3 months in advance, in Crave's new currency. She never uses the hotel staff. She makes her bed herself and she never leaves her room except after sundown. That was the first clue. She only came out at night. Ngozi remembered the illness. The men didn't just lose money. they became weak. She then went to the village pharmacist. Yes, the men are wasting away, but I saw Efe buy something strange, not medicine. She bought something called fipronil and asked for a high dose of rampage 30, the strongest pest killer. She said she had a rat problem in her room. Ngozi's blood ran cold. Pest killer? What rat problem was she solving, and why were the men getting sick? This sickness wasn't magical. It was poison. Something slow, something that drained the body over the time. Pest killers were just a cover story. The real problem was Efe's room. Ngozi knew she had to get inside Efe's room. She waited until the evening when Efe finally stepped out, dressed in a beautiful flowing dress, heading towards the only decent bar left in the area. Ngozi snuck into the guest house using a piece of wire. She managed to open the lock to Efe's room. The room was simple, clean and empty. But under the mattress, Ngozi found it. A small locked wooden box. Ngozi searched quickly and found a tiny silver key hidden inside the tube of expensive imported lotion. She opened the box. Inside were not charms or juju. There was a heavy ledger and a collection of photographs. Ngozi looked at the ledger. It was a detailed professional record. Mazi Okafor, amount stolen 15 million. Method, transfer via stolen bank token while asleep. Illness, high dose sleeping pill mixed with small amount of pesticide given over 4 nights. Papa Chidi, amount stolen 4.5 million. Method, cash removed from safe using key copy. Brother James, amount stolen 6 million. Arson, paid for by a local hoodlum. Insurance claimed by Efe's business associate. Efe wasn't a spirit. She was a highly skilled criminal, a con artist, a professional thief, and a calculated murderer. The beauty was just a tool. The loss was the bet. So what was her motive? Ngozi flipped through the photographs. They were old, faded pictures of Efe as a little girl, standing next to an older man. The man was well dressed, proud. And then Ngozi saw it, a picture of the man, the proud father, sitting in a small barber shop in Omondi, and the sign above the shop read, Proprietor Chief Nnamdi. Chief Nnamdi, the kind wealthy man who was cheated out of his business years ago by 3 greedy partners, Mazi Okafor, Papa Chidi, and Brother James. The 3 men had ruined Chief Nnamdi, taken his money, and he had died a poor broken man. Ngozi connected the final dots. Efe was not a cursed woman. She was the daughter of Chief Nnamdi, and she had come back to Umundi for one thing: revenge. She wasn't stealing money randomly. She was reclaiming her father's lost fortune from the men who had stolen it, and she was punishing them for the crime they committed years ago, the crime the town had forgotten. She wasn't a demon. She was an avenger. Ngozi knew she couldn't call the police. The men she was trying to save were criminals themselves. If Efe was arrested, the whole ugly truth would come out, and Omondi would be destroyed by shame. She had to confront Efe. That night, Ngozi waited at the guest house when Efe returned, her diamond-like eyes glittering in the moonlight. Ngozi stepped out of the shadow. I know who you are, Efe, or should I say, Nnamdi's daughter? Efe stopped dead. The smile left her face. The beauty was still there, but it was now cold, hard, and dangerous. I don't know what you're talking about. You should go home, woman, before you lose what little you have left. I have nothing to lose, Efe. My husband is dying, my home is broken. You are the one who has something to lose, freedom. I have your book, the ledger, the list of your crimes, the proof that you are poisoning my husband and the others. Efe didn't look scared, she looked impressed. So you figured it out? Good for you. They killed my father slowly, with stress and shame. I am just giving them a taste of their own medicine. I am an agent of justice, Ngozi. Your husband and the others, they are snakes. Ngozi knew she couldn't win a fight. She had to make a deal. You have your revenge. You have the money. You have ruined them. But my husband, Mazi Okafor, he only had a small part in the crime. His sickness is the worst. Give me the cure, leave Umundi tonight, and I will destroy the ledger. You keep the money. The town keeps its shame a secret. The sickness stops, and you finally let your father rest. Efe looked at Ngozi. She saw the true strength of a woman fighting for her family, a strength that was far more powerful than the diamond-eyed illusion she carried. Finally, Efe gave a small cold nod. The poison is slow. It is not fatal yet. I will give you the treatment. The town will believe the curse is lifted because of your prayers. Tell no one, ever. The next morning, the beautiful, terrifying Efe was gone. She left on Monday the same way she came, quietly in a fancy taxi from the city. Ngozi used the antidote Efe gave her. Slowly, Mazi Okafor and the other men began to recover. Their strength returned, nothing stopping. The town did exactly what Ngozi hoped. They said the curse was finally lifted because the wives had prayed hard enough. The men, now poor and weak, was forced to rebuild their lives and their marriages, having learned the most brutal lessons of their lives. Umundi became quiet again, but the women, led by Ngozi, learned a different lesson. They knew that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is not a spirit or a curse, but a woman who has been wronged, carrying a memory and a powerful plan. And every time a new beautiful stranger visits the quiet town, the women of Umundi remembers Efe, the diamond-eyed avenger, and they watched. They always watched. What do you think? Was Efe a wicked woman, or was she simply delivering the justice her father was owed? Let me know in the comment section. Thank you.